Nothing would change. He would just die in China. Well, that escalated quick. Welcome back to your weekly alternate history. Last time I asked you all, what if Timur, the emperor of the Timurid Empire, did not get sick and die on his way to China? A lot of interesting responses, so let's get right into it. And before we begin, I want to make some changes. In the introduction, I mentioned that if you're going to talk about alternate history, you should talk about the impact of that alternate history of a specific event, for example, only in the Third Crusade. But now I'm going to change it. So I'm going to remove that restriction, and then you can talk about the impact of the modern world or any time or whatever time you want. So let's get right into the comments. The Timurids would have learned not to fight a land war in Asia, and he still would have died because some Chinese guy killed him. Nothing changes in the long term. Well, land war in Asia, but they were always in Asia. I don't think you mean East Asia. I believe that if Timur hadn't died on his way to conquer the Ming, China at that time, then Timur would have completely conquered it, and then his successors would have possibly conquered all of Central Asia. Persia would still gain independence. Timur wins war against China and gets huge army from Chinese people because almost all his army dies. Then he moves to attack Korea and Mongolia, where Chinese, Korean, and Mongolian people. His army betrayed him and he is defeated. With that morale in final battles, people made new country of United Asian Republic. No one rebels and country controls all Asia and follows Confucianism. If Timur did not die on his way to China, Timur would go to Tibet, but long sieges in terrain would slow the Timur's progress, and in 1411, Ottomans declared war. They retreat to home and Ottomans get strong earlier. The country broke into civil war and other bordering nations declare war on Timur. The Timurid Empire dies, Ottomans gets most of the land of Persia, and Persia is converted to Sunni. Ottomans get stronger and makes conquest to India. Europeans never come to India and Southeast Asia. Most of Europe make coalition wars against the Ottomans. In Victorian era, Ottomans deal with a lot of separatists. In Crimean War, they take back Crimea. World War I the same. Modern Turkey is bigger and Iran is smaller. Most of Middle East is peaceful. Well, I guess it wouldn't backfire. Or would it? In this scenario, we need to make Timur a little bit more safe for sickness. So let's begin. Timur got healthy again, while after a while in Ottara, him and his army continued into Ming China. They invaded into the northern part of Xinjiang. I use modern names in this to make it do. And met up with their allies, the Yun. They kicked China's ass, and the war was long and all of that. China fell, a Yun prince got ruler in China under the Timurids, and Timur got time for peace. He did sort out who should be his successor, and when Timur died around 1415, the Timurid Empire was not dying. In fact, it's expanded, but after some years, it was torn apart and given to Timur's grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Today, the Timurids is still in power in Samarkand, but not so much else, and Asia is much more Mongol. Yeah, guess that makes sense. Timurid Empire will unite Mongol tribes as Mongols united the tribes of their kind. As they done that, Timur attacked Tibet and China, but they somehow managed to enter the Great Wall of China and easily invaded. With that act, China will be a Muslim country and their country is Mongolian and Turkish. What are the odds of that happening? Timur would then send his troops in an attempt to overthrow the Chinese central government. However, this fails and completely destroys the Timurid Empire. Chinese countries then unify into one single nation, possible named Qing or Han Dynasty. This increased trade business with China and causes the Timurid Empire to fall sooner. Persia will be weaker and more western in this timeline. Well, I don't suppose that is not possible. He would have conquered China and stuff. China would be called Chinastan up until this day. Islamic culture everywhere, also wider spread in Europe. USA and Chinastan will argue about the fate of Iran when it faced the Islamic Revolution, which Chinastan secretly supported. Communism wouldn't have spread in Asia. No Kim in North Korea. Yay. if USA and China came to an agreement, then China will help the USA in the event of an escalating Cold War. Japan will be wrecked in World War II by combined arms of all Islamic nations. Arabia, question mark. Well, I do want to talk about this a bit. China's stand, I don't know that name because you always forget that the rebellions. Another thing I don't understand is how does this spread Islamic culture into Europe, like a wider spread. Like, I don't see how an event in China would cause that to happen, but you can always elaborate. And everything else here is like, it's really hard to tell what's going to happen, but you know, it's alternate history. I'm not going to judge. And finally, Timurids will occupy China and spread the Islamic culture further. North China could have its current Chinese culture, but South China will be some type of Islamic Chinese culture. Let's call it Timurids because why not? Timurids fall at some point of time, so it wouldn't exist in modern ages. Islam has its followers in Japan, Siberia, and even Europe, obviously. There will be terrorism, but it wouldn't be so judged as Islam is the most buggist religion. In 2016, most of Asia is Islamic and Europe is fighting holy proxy war against Middle Eastern countries. And communism revolution didn't happen in China, as well as Korean War didn't happen. Well, okay. And that is all the comments I picked out for today. Now for next week, I'm going to ask you guys this. What if the Second Balkan War did not happen? You can tell me how this did not happen and the impact of the world if this event did not happen.